Transformers. Robots in disguise. This is Chapter 10, the final countdown. This is, of course, Fall of Cybertron. This is a beefy level as well. We're playing as Megatron and we're really getting involved here. This is a big boy level. Lots to do, lots to kill, and it's really, really fun. I can't remember if anything's too difficult, but if it turns up, I shall remember, and I will regale you of the tale of how to circumvent it without too many issues, hopefully. You can transform into a vehicle right now to take these guys out if you want to, but you don't have to. It's up to you. But they do take a lot of hits. I've never played this game using perks and upgrades and things. I wonder how strong you get. I would imagine you get pretty damn strong. But you know the cool thing about this game? It's balanced really well. Like, you are still really strong, just base. And I really respect a game that's willing to do that, because not many are. Like, quite recently I went back and I played The Suffering, which is a game I've always wanted to love, but I can't because it's balanced by a bell end. And the start of that game is really slick. It might have been The Suffering 2. Because do you get out of the prison in the first Suffering? I don't think you do you? It might have been Suffering 2. I don't remember. You get what I mean, though. For the people that don't know, there's a game called The Suffering. It was famous at the time because your character gets covered in blood. It was on the PS2. And you play a convict who's like guilty of murdering his family or something, and he turns into a fucking demon, and there's like Silent Hill Cenobite monsters everywhere, and there's all these demons attacking this prison, and you have to jack them up. I don't really know any more than that. It's obviously a lot more interesting than that when you play it. But the gameplay in that game is super cool until it's not. And I streamed it, really excited to cover it for YouTube because I've always wanted to like those games, and I was having a great time. And I was experimenting with doing like, you know, no upgrades or pistol only or just messing around with stuff like that. And most of the game was absolutely fine. And then we got to this sequence where we're on this street. Like, you go through all these streets, you go outside, and it's just like a normal street with a bunch of cars on it and a bunch of like burning shops. And there's just like 20 fucking monsters. And they come in spawns of 3, I think it was. And each of these monsters is a big tanky monstrosity that takes an hour to die. So what I did is, at first I just couldn't kill them. I'm like, is this bugging out? Is it glitching? Is something going wrong? But it turns out they're so tanky, they just take an obscene amount of damage. So what I ended up figuring out is you could get them stuck on the cars. You could get them stuck on the cars, and you could separate them a little bit, and then you could like, you know, isolate them and kill them. But they move really fast, they chase you the whole time, and when you stop to attack them, they all attacked you. But I managed to kill all 3 of them, and I was like, damn, that was terrible. I'm not looking forward to doing that again. I might not be interested in this game, because if it's going to be like this, it's not going to be fun. And then 3 more spawned. And it's just like, what is happening? And then I killed them, and then 3 more spawned, and then at that point, I just turned it off and uninstalled it, because there's this thing that happens with design for me, and I have 0 patience for it anymore. I barely had patience for it back in the day, but when your game shows to me that you're willing to do something like that, which is just a needless gauntlet of incredibly tanky, boring, brain-dead enemies, I don't trust you to make a compelling and engaging campaign moving forward from that point. Because as soon as you show me that you're willing to deliver that kind of garbage, I am unwilling to trust you any further. And time is precious, there's only so many games you can play in your lifetime. I just move on to something else. And it's such a shame because I love the game. I want to love the game, but the balance is just not there. It just isn't. And sadly, game balance for me is one of those things that is absolute make and break. I'm not interested in a game that's badly balanced, and it's rare that I'm willing to put up with bad balance, because I'd rather just play something that has good balance, you know? And recently, one of the worst balanced games is Lies of P, but I put up with that because the game's amazing. And they've just dropped a patch today, which is really cool, and I'm hoping that it's going to do a lot of the things I wanted it to do, because that game does need help. And I hope it gets it, because it deserves it. But it happens all the time that way. You go back to a project and you try and cover it, and then something turns up and it's just like, yeah, this is not going to work, it's not going to be fun. And usually it's performance or mouse or something of that nature, like checkpoints. There's a game that's just come out called UFO Robot Grendizer. It's based off an anime in the 80s. And a friend of my channel mentioned it on my stream, and I'm like, oh, I'll take a look at this. He said it's like an action game with shmup elements. I like action games, I love shmups, you know? It's the ultimate combination. And I checked it out last night. I put a video on YouTube to show people. If you didn't know about it, you can check it out. And I had a really good time with it. It was really silly. It's got a super cheesy 80s fucking soundtrack. It sounds like you're watching those Dragon Ball movies where the music just doesn't fit the movie. It feels super appropriately 80s anime. It's got the great art style. It's got tons of colour. It's a bit rough. It's a bit buggy. It's a bit janky. There's a lot of things I'd like to change, but it's surprisingly solid and fun. And I'm playing this and I'm like, I can't believe I'm playing this game. This game is clearly not where it needs to be, but I'm having a good time, and that is what gaming's all about, and it put a smile on my face. And then I got to the second area. In the second area, the frame rate's terrible. It went from like 180 frames to 70. And I turned everything to low, and it was still 70, so the fucking optimization's terrible. But what do you expect? It's clearly Japanese. So I'm moving through this area, doing this weird mission structure, where I go and I look at a shrine and I talk to some people and save a little bit of a town because I'm a big robot. And then I go and I help firefighters. I transport firefighters to a fire by killing a bunch of robots. And I'm doing all these weird things for like 20 minutes. And then I get to a mission where it's like, oh, this is an alien spacecraft that is breeding soldiers and robots. You need to shut it down, robot man. I'm like, dude, I'm going to shut this thing down. This is cool. And I start attacking this thing. And you know me, I'm a weirdo. I don't heal in games. And in this game, you have this auto-heal when you hold the D-pad, and it heals you and it uses your energy. And I get hit by this thing, and it does a decent amount of damage, but I don't heal, because I'm like, I'll be fine. And then I keep playing, and then I go to attack the center, and the center's an active hitbox, so as I attack him, I'm taking damage. And I back away, and I'm like, whoa, what happened then? Did I get shot? Was it an AoE? So I don't think much about it. And then I'm dodging his moves, and I go back in to attack it again, and it kills me. And I'm like, whoa, dude, this is rough. I can't mess around with this. I've got to use my shoulder blades or something, right? And then it respawns me at the start of the level. The whole fucking level, dude, before I'd even done anything. And it's in that moment where you're just like, yeah, I don't know about this. It played the cutscene. All that 25 minutes of like doing quests and saving people was apparently all fucking gone. And I don't know if it was. I don't know if some saves and some didn't. But the moment you hit an old school checkpoint like that, in a modern context, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. Because for me, when I play a game, I don't just play the game to get into the story and be like, oh, this is cool. I play it for what I'm going to do next, you know? And I don't look at it from like a YouTube perspective, even though sometimes you can. I look at it from a perspective of, I wonder how I can crank this to make it really interesting. Like, I wonder what the hardest difficulty's like. I wonder what a challenge run would look like. I wonder if the combat's going to hold up to let me do all these crazy restrictions and have a good time. Is this going to be something I'm going to have a ton of fun with? That's what my brain's always asking when I'm playing. So when I hit a shit checkpoint, my brain goes, no, we're not doing this. Like, immediately. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm going to give that game a second chance and keep playing it because it's really, really cool. But now I'm healing. Now I'm like, fuck this noise, dude. If you're just going to kill me on something bullshit and then make me lose all my progress, I'm not going to be able to have any fun with that at all. But now I know, you know, there's no reason for it to happen again. But up until that point, I was really schmitten. But I can't stand bad checkpoints. And I don't understand how we can be in 2023 and still be fucking getting them. And I can understand people that like, you know, Iron Man and challenging themselves with checkpoints and stuff, but you need to give your player the option for either or either. That's how I feel. I've always felt that way. And I've just covered Max Payne, which you're going to be seeing very soon. Max Payne is a game where you can choose to limit your saves, or you can save every waking moment. It's entirely up to you. Everybody has a different opinion of how many saves is appropriate to maintain the integrity of the video game, and no one agrees on them. So it opens up the ultimate door for difficulty. You can make your checkpoint whatever you want it to be so that you can adhere to the amount of difficulty you think you should face. And is there no greater way than letting the player be the arbiter of that? Potentially not. And of course it's fraught with toil because people can cheat. You know, you can save literally every time you shoot a man and it works and you don't get shot. You can just be like, the whole time. You can be macroing your way through the game and save scumming, as people call it. You can do that if you want to. I don't recommend it. It seems kind of pointless to me. But at the same time, there are people who think if you use that feature at all, that you're the exact same as the person that does it after every single interaction. And they're not the same. And you're always going to have people that look at what you're doing on a video game and do not agree and don't support it and think that you're a scammer or a scumbag or a noob or a scrub or whatever you want to say. That's just the way of the world. It's fine. It is what it is. The other day on stream I was playing Quantum Break and someone came into my chat and said, why is my aim so bad? And I don't think I've got the best aim, but I don't think my aim is bad. But he did, you know, and that's one of those things. You're always going to have some dissenting voice. And nowadays on the internet, you never know if they're being serious or trolling or what. It might have been my dad on an alternate account trying to fuck with me, I don't know. I personally feel if you have checkpoints and you have the ability to quick save and quick load, working in unison with each other, you have yourself the ultimate approach to checkpoints. Because if you want developer prescribed restart points, the checkpoints will cover you. However, if you want to make your own difficulty, then the quick load and the quick save features will do that for you. And you can save at the start of a level, and you can beat the whole level on that save if you want to, if you're good enough, and then feel satisfaction for doing that. Or if you like to do what I do, which is I like to save at the start of every encounter, and then when I complete it, I like to save at the end. That is the format that I think is the most fun. And I don't mind if that encounter has got 3 waves of enemies, or if that encounter's got 100 dudes in it, you know. Save once at the start, beat it all in one continuous sequence, and then at the end carry on, like you've ticked it off in the notebook and you're moving on to the next adventure. That's the way I like to sequence my games, and that to me is perfect challenge. Challenge to fun ratio is perfectly encapsulated in that way of doing it. But not everybody does think that, not everybody likes that, you know. We live at a time now where speedrunning is skewing how people look at challenges. Everything is speedrunning now because it's the most popular. And everybody knows speedrunning, it's not even niche anymore, it's as mainstream as anything else. And what it has happened is it's made it so that the entire culture of gamers looks at things now from a perspective of a single segmented run. And it's ironic in many ways because speedrunning came from segmented. Most speedruns back in the day were segmented, but now they're not because people like this live element, they like this single sequential risk and nerve and atmosphere that you get from that, because let's face it, it is a hell of a lot scarier to have everything riding on one attempt than it is to have 1,000 attempts chopped up into a nice single sequence. And I understand why it is the way it is, even though I don't personally care for it, but I think it's a little bit disappointing that it's affecting everything else. You know, one of the cool things about being niche in a community or doing something that's fringe is that you aren't the mainstream. You aren't part of the greater wealth of players. You're out there in the outskirts doing something stupid and weird that they don't understand. Like, I was in a stream once watching somebody play Elden Ring, and this person was like level 200 before they'd got to the ice place, the snow place that's really hard at the end of the game. And they were riding around on a horse, and they had the Blood Twin Blade, and then they had some other Twin Blade, and they'd got like tons of spells. They were the ultimate jack of every trade that was really strong, and they bled people into oblivion in like 2 or 3 hits. And I was watching this streamer while he was playing, and he was on Discord talking to someone. And these players, in another genre, are incredible, unbelievably capable players. You're talking top 1% of the world. Really, really skilled. But in Souls, they play very casually. They play one playthrough, they have a great time, they tell their friends about it, and then they move on. And while they were playing, and I just had them on the side, they said, some guy said, did you know there's people that have gone through this game without leveling up? And they were all so incredulous and just almost like, why would you do that? Some people are just crazy kind of attitude towards doing a soul level 1 in those games. And I'm not talking about restrictions. I'm not talking about crazy runs. We're just talking, they didn't level. They did a basic no level run. But to them, it was like, why would you be that guy? Why would you do that? Even though in the games that those players are really good at, they are that guy. They're the person that other people who are casual go, why would you put that much time in? Why would you do that? Why would you get that good? Why would you take it that seriously? And I always find that really funny when you come across it, because we all have that moment where, where we're the core and where we're the hardcore, and we're not always the same. But it's fascinating, isn't it, when you come up against something that you really don't get. You don't view it and understand it like other people do. And the cool thing is it's neither wrong nor right, it just is, you know? It is regardless of how you feel about it. And that's one of the cool things about finding your niche. If you find the thing that you like and the thing that you enjoy doing, and you go whole hog into it, you don't have to worry about what other people think, because it doesn't really matter. You know, it's like when you create a challenge run. If you create a challenge run, you can't be held towards any other challenge run because you're making something new. But do you know the moment you do someone else's challenge run, you are now held accountable to what they specified the rules for that run is, because this is established by somebody. They have ingested it and incepted it, and now you are taking the reins and running and doing it yourself to prove that you can. You now are beholden to the person that invented that rule set. And I would imagine that not everybody takes it that seriously. I would say if you ever do a run like any of the runs I've done, knock yourself out, have a good time with it, you know, it's not that serious. But if you want to do something serious and really be seen as something, then you have to adhere to exactly what it says on that piece of paper. And if you don't, you cannot be counted, you know, you can't stand up and be counted because you are not countable. You didn't do it. And then that leads you to that incredibly fringe and niche, like, schism in the challenge communities of people disagreeing with each other on certain common, like, facilities within there. The idea of what this should be as opposed to what it should not, which is always really fascinating because it's hard to agree and disagree because it's all so subjective. But that's what makes it fascinating, and that's what makes it worth analysing, and that's what makes people engage with it. And you're always going to have those people that love a game and take it more seriously than others, and really apply themselves and really put themselves in there. And the fact that we don't agree is what makes it so interesting, but at the same time, it can be a little bit disheartening when your particular tastes are on the receiving end of all the criticism and the bluntness, rather than the compliments. And it's interesting how history changes and how it switches. It makes me wonder if it will fall out of favour, because back in the old days, no damage, I suppose you could say no damage was kind of popular, because you have things like the no misses in the arcade and, you know, doing 1cc's and things, which is comparable because, you know, technically you do die but you don't continue. And there's always people pushing genres and pushing ways things can be done so that they can flex on their expertise and their understanding of the game. But like right now, no damage is not really respected that much because people don't know what it is. And I really like no damage, even though it's not something that comes naturally to me. And because I like it, I respect it. And when I respect something, I want other people to respect it also. But sadly, it doesn't get a lot of respect. It just seems to get a lot of confusion because people don't truly understand what is happening, or the legacy of it, or the history of it. And I think it's another one of those casualties of Souls, basically. Difficulty, no damage, the concept of challenge and balance, all of these things have been put in a spotlight and skewed through a strange lens that is this post-From Software world. And anybody that's done anything difficult, pre-fucking Demon Souls, will tell you that that shit just doesn't even compare. But sadly, we live in a world where people won't watch a movie from 2017 because it's, quote, old. Just madness. Hey, we got the sniper rifle here, though. We've got the shooting gallery coming down. Beefy old level, this one. Lots to see, lots to do. Look at that screen as well when you're dying. I do like how quickly your shield comes back. I think one of the things I would do, you know, if I made a third-person shooter or a first-person shooter, the first thing I would do, I'm not even going to front here, is I would steal the healing mechanic from Black Ops 4. But if I couldn't do that, or if indeed we were going a different direction, I would make it so that your shield regens really quickly, and can even maybe be regened by doing something active, but it goes down quickly. Like, I would make it that thing of, your shield comes back fast, but you lose it quick. It's that constant knife edge of being on the verge of death. And I think that could be a really, really nice balance. Because in a lot of games, I don't know about you, when I look back on some of my old walkthroughs or I get some old games to see if I could cover them, where you sit in cover for like a fucking minute before your life fades back in, it's too long. It's way too long. And back in those days, it was tense and everything, and you were worried and you were into it because you were super immersed. But when you look back, it wasn't really that interesting, was it? Like, healing has always been a difficult thing. It's just such a difficult thing to balance, and it's also a difficult thing to convince a player is in their benefit. Because back when you had like armor and med packs and health, the whole game was littered with it, It was always about finding the cash and stocking up, and then the game would inevitably, through sheer attrition, just strip you away, and then you'd replenish and strip you away and replenish and strip you away. It was like just constantly taking down layers, wasn't it, with a plane off wood so that you can unveil the grain underneath. Like some kind of elaborate cleaning job that there's probably an entire genre on YouTube of restorers doing right now, making a lot of money. And I do think that there is some grace in that. But there's so many aspects. This is quite difficult, this part as well. You have to defend this hack that's happening, and there's going to be a lot of enemies, and it's quite claustrophobic, but you are so strong in this game, and Megatron is just that goddamn good. Like, his tank is nuts, his guns are nuts, he's just great. He's got a nice combination of all the tools you need to succeed, but keep on strafing left and right, and keeping on top of everybody, and you shouldn't have too much trouble here. I was quite worried about this sequence after normal. I had a harder time here on normal than I did on hard. But I do think that we need an innovation in HP mechanics. I think every so often you get a nice step towards something different that just takes old elements and makes them fresh and new again. Because we had the armor and the life, then we had the med packs, then we had the regeneration stuff, then you could say we had maybe something like Doom Eternal, where you do an engagement to an enemy, you kill it, and it gives you something back. Like, there's been various versions of that, whereas I think Doom Eternal probably did it in the most engaging way that complemented its gameplay loop. What comes next? How do you do that system? And do it to a sense where you break new grounds? Is there any new grounds even to be made? Because when you think of the future of gaming, I don't think many people outside of, like, the really smart guys grinding away now on some new concepts, I don't think people think of it from a perspective of mechanics. They don't think of, like, the new gameplay and the new systems. They think of it as new technology. You notice that? It's always like, well, what does the new engine do? What is nanite, What will the teraflops be? What is the capability? They look at it from things like VR, where it's like, VR is obviously going to be really, really cool once it gets standardized and it's in every household. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be coming up with new gameplay solutions, even though you could argue VR by its nature, because it is so different in how it controls and how you engage with it, has to come up with new gameplay solutions just to exist. But even then, you could probably put money that the concepts will be very similar. This is a shooter, this is a porn game. This is also a porn game. This is, oh my goodness, there's more porn games than anything else. These porn games are popular. Like, it's just the way it's going to be. Like, where is the new thing? And would you know it if you saw it? Because that's an interesting concept, isn't it? That the new thing could be there right now. It could be just languishing in the obscure. But you've never seen it, and because you're so trained now to not question anything or view anything else, it just seems like nothing. Scary thought that, isn't it? That we've been made blind to actual game design by bad game design.